Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by SurvivingBreastCancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of SurvivingBreastCancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Breast Cancer Conversations. Today's conversation is a powerful reminder that cancer does not only change our health, but it changes how we see ourselves and how we move through the world. My guest today, Bron Watson, knows this transformation firsthand. Bron is a registered nurse with nearly 2 decades of experience caring for patients. But in 2018, everything shifted when she herself found out that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And then, just a few years later, faced yet another diagnosis, this time with blood cancer. Suddenly, the person trained to guide others through uncertainty found herself navigating fear, identity shifts, and emotional complexity being the patient. Through this experience, Bron began asking deeper questions about what it means to heal. Her experience led her to create the Serenity Project, a platform dedicated to helping others find calm, clarity, and support during and after a cancer diagnosis. In this episode, we talk about what happens when a caregiver becomes the patient, how cancer can reshape identity, and why learning how to slow down may be the most important and the most challenging part of the healing process. Before we begin, if you are new to the podcast, I would love to welcome you. I am so glad you found us. And if you are looking for more ways to connect, you can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org/events to see the full lineup of programming and resources that we offer. We also launched an online community where you can stay connected with all other avid listeners and SBC community members. It's all free and available for you at survivingbreastcancer.org. Now let's dive right in. Welcome to the conversation.
You know, 8 years ago, never thought I'd be having these conversations, but here we are. So I have a nursing education registered nurse background. So I've been in the game for a long time, decades, in fact. And alongside that, I've had a double career running, working in marketing, and for the past 14 years, running my own business. Now, there's context to all this story. And so where we go through, I'm a mum of 5 boys and, full life. So when I hit my 40th birthday with babe on hip, looked around and went, wow, is this it? Wow, lucky me. I can't believe it was such a strange thing. And that's when I decided to start doing something for me, which is when I started to learn about running a business and built this beast thinking that I was doing the right thing for me. And in 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer on a Thursday. 6 days later, I'm on an operating table having a mastectomy, and 3 weeks after that, starting chemotherapy. And as we know, we go through this absolute chaotic time. And we go through all of this running a business, and we can talk about some of that later, but coming through all of that, and I remember someone saying to me must have been between, maybe in that first 3 weeks, they said to me, Bron, if you don't change how you're living, you're going to die, don't you?
That's right.
And it was so traumatic. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to, and I'm looking around and I'm Googling and I'm trying to work out, I'm going to have to change everything. What do I got to change? And so this absolute chaos started. And then once all the dust settles over the years, I sort of realized that what that person was saying to me was, you really do need to start looking after yourself more. So I was 48 at the time. And so fast forward 5 years, I'm at the 5-year mark. When you get blessed and released here in Australia, 5-year mark, you're cured. Lucky me, we're cured. And so I'd blessed and released from the surgeon, and my GP said to me, Bron, your neutrophils have been down for about 5 years now since the chemo. Maybe we need to get a hematologist to have a little look. And I'm going, oh, okay. Blessing, releasing, we've got the 5-year mark. Come to January 2023. See the hematologist. He goes, great, Bron, the bloods are great. 4 days later, I get a phone call. Bron, those 2 blood results that hadn't come back? I said, yeah. The ones that I told you that were nothing? I said, yeah. He goes, well, there's something, and that's really bad. Okay, here we go again. And it took a month for a full diagnosis. So through that diagnosis, here I am Googling, what does it all mean? And he was flippantly dropping words around multiple myeloma and bone marrow biopsies, and we've got to do this, we've got to do that. I'm in the country, right? It's January. I don't get to see him again. So from the 9th of January to the 1st of January, I don't get anything. I'm just waiting to speak to this man after I've been left this bombshell. go through the bone marrow biopsy and formal diagnosis of multiple myeloma. So that's a blood cancer on the 23rd of February, 2023. And now that's what dropped me, because remembering in the curative lane, we want the cure, and we're working hard in ourselves, in our lives, in our family, in our bodies, working for no more cancer, no evidence of cancer. And now to be told, well, Bron, it's a blood cancer. It's incurable. Lots of changes are happening in the technology, blah, blah, blah. And I was given a prognosis of a single digit. I don't talk about that because I don't believe, especially with technology, remembering I've got a nursing education background, I know what's going on here, that technology is changing too fast for that person to have given me a number. And I was not asked if I wanted to hear it. Let's just put it out there. So here we are. We've gone through all this major change, and here I am talking with you in Boston about breast cancer and cancer. And I'm so passionate about all the things we can do. I actually call it the Serenity Project. So Serenity is the space between science and soul and evidence and perspective. So because I have evidence and I have perspective because I've lived this whole thing for 3 decades and I'm in it, and there's so much we can do towards a path of healing. And that's what you guys do. And that's why we're here, nearly 6 minutes later.
No, perfect. No, thank you for that robust intro. Every time we talk to people who've been diagnosed with breast cancer, it is heart-wrenching. Our guests are reopening wounds that are potentially in the process of healing. We're reliving that phone call report we're reading on the portal, and all of the things like it was yesterday, like it was day one.
Yeah.
And all of us want to realize, like, where can we have that level of control? What can we change that we feel like we're participating in our own health, whether that's diet, nutrition, lifestyle, exercise.
Absolutely.
And so when did you start the Serenity Project? That wasn't your original business that you started when you started a company?
No.
Okay.
No. This is like a self-help. I'm the beta test. Strangely enough, I started writing a book in 2015. And I found that chapter that I wrote in 2024 again. And I couldn't believe that what I was writing, what I wrote, which was 5,500 words, was exactly what I had just been going through. So the Serenity Project, or I am the Serenity Project, just so you know, is what that came around when I was sitting out the back of my house. And this is after the second diagnosis. And I'm looking at the trees and I'm literally praying to God. Now, insert whoever you believe here. Source, universe, insert whatever you want to believe. And I'm going, please just give me time. Please, God, give me time. And had the formal diagnosis. Bron, we'll be starting chemotherapy next week and we'll be booking in for a stem cell transplant, other words, a bone marrow transplant in about June, July. Okay, so no time. Is that what you're telling me? No time. Great. Here we go again. And because I'd been through this rodeo before, I knew what it was like to go from having the formal diagnosis to surgery. And now for me, another even worse. So Malphilan is the chemo they give you when you have the stem cell transplant, literally 24 hours before they give you back your baby stem cells. That's probably I think it's one of the worst in the world in terms of the side effects. So here we are going through it all again, bold again. And just through that, I started to think, well, Bron, what are things you can do for you? What can you do for you? And that's when I started to look for what I call now Serenity Moments. It's a moment in time and so the Serenity Prayer was written by Alcoholics Anonymous nearly 100 years ago. And it says, God, grant me serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's where it started. Whereas because I had been dealt this card and twice, I had to start working on, for me, I chose, actually, I should say, it's all a choice. I chose to look at what I could look after and control and what I can't. So now I live by it all day, every day, because I now, touch wood, even when I walk in, because I have still monthly appointments, obviously, because they're doing this. So knowing that what science teaches me, but knowing also what I know for myself in terms of that's the soul part, I can walk into the Cancer Institute now to see those specialists, to see the team, and I am no longer absolutely rigid with fear and trauma. So I can now walk in quite calmly. And I've taught myself that. It took nearly 3 years, but I've taught myself to be able to handle adversity when you don't know what's happening next. Because that's the fear, isn't it? You know, Laura, that's that fear of going, is it back? Or the fear of a change. And I have taught myself to handle that fear. Does it mean that doesn't mean that I don't get anxiety or cry and carry on afterwards? Absolutely I do. That's normal. But I have now put myself in a place where at least I'm not in that terror anymore, which is
Incredible.
something it's taken a while.
And I'm sure it's an evolution and a path because now for me, going into doctor's appointments or I'm going through a whole slew of my own tests, I'm approaching my 10-year mark. And of course, I'm like horrified about all of these potential changes. I want to be excited just like you were at 5. And talking to my husband about it, I can now identify this behavior is me processing. And he can
Yes.
even see it days before my anxiety spikes because
Yeah.
like I know you have an appointment next week, so I expect this around Tuesday. Not a problem. And he's just like flipping channels and watching sports and just being himself. And he's letting me be like the crazy and whatever it is that I have to like get out of my system. And he just knows that. It's like he knows me better than I know myself because he can anticipate what this path and this process has been like. And because of that, I've been able to be more self-aware of, oh, yes, this is manifesting in this way because I am worried about an event that's coming up. And so me drowning myself in work or emails or needing to take a walk or a jog or, hang out with my puppy, whatever it is that I need. It's kind of that
Exactly.
self-awareness of, okay, I just need to like feel all the feels right now. So that way, when we go into these appointments, I can handle the stress that's going to be thrown my way.
Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the things I talk about is we feel the feels, right? We want to name it. So when you're slowing down or allowing yourself to process and then having that awareness, like that is so powerful. And if you can name that feeling and if it's crying, cry. It's completely normal. And then by naming it, it's like a psychological thing. When you name it, it almost puts it like a space between, I call it space between you and that emotion. And then the next step for me is I talk about control the controllables. I can't control what's going to be on that report. It's done. I don't know the answer yet, but I can't control it. So what can I control? Well, I can control standing up and going for a walk. I can control going and talking to the dog. Dogs make so much sense.
They totally do.
So much sense, right? And then one thing my husband he calls it the pause. He doesn't call it serenity. He calls it the pause. So he allows space, literal space to pause enough to process, to think, to reflect, and then respond versus react. Because fear is a reaction. So you go into your reptilian brain, you're going into fight and flight, your frontal lobe turns off, and you no longer are thinking, you're surviving. So if we can get to the space of thinking through a pause, and you might have to rinse and repeat 20,000 times, that is just so powerful no matter what journey you're on, and I hate that word too, but it doesn't matter because we all know that feeling, and it's funny when you were talking about as if, feeling like that phone call was yesterday. Recently, I saw a lady walking out of the cancer institute and she was sobbing. And my heart just went for her. I just almost started crying for her because I know the sadness and grief that she's walking out with and the trauma that she's just experienced. And it's like, oof. But it's not mine. That was my next step for myself. Like, oh, Bron, that's not yours. Please don't put that on yourself. It's not yours. Feel it, but don't own it.
Right. I want to take a quick moment and tell you something I'm really excited about. You can now download the survivingbreastcancer.org app directly from the App Store or Google Play. Just search for survivingbreastcancer.org. It is completely free to download, and inside you will have access to all of our support groups, educational programs and webinars, all of our blog content and articles, podcast episodes, and community features to connect with others who understand what you're going through. Everything in one place, because navigating breast cancer shouldn't require 15 open browser tabs. Download the app today. And what role does your background being an RN and a nurse educator, a healthcare educator. How do you balance kind of almost knowing too much going into
Yes.
environment?
Look, it's a really good question. Hematology, blood, I don't know much about. It wasn't my thing, right? Surgical, yes, my thing. So being the patient in the bed, like obviously after decades of standing there, seeing people have diagnosis after diagnosis after diagnosis, and off they'd trot down to the Cancer Institute or wherever they're going, never gave it another thought. And when you're the patient in the bed, it's very, very different. It was horrifying actually, because I know what's meant to happen. Is it helpful? It's helpful in some ways in the fact that I can understand the language they're talking. So I can speak the speak. That makes no sense, but you know what I mean. But
I
what
speak
I
your
talk
language
about,
too. I get that.
and you'll learn it, right? When you're in it long enough, you'll hear the language and you'll start speaking the language, and it's hilariously not funny. But what I talk about is that for me, I'm an active participant in my treatment. I am not a passive bystander. So when it comes to talking around health, I imagine myself, I'm the CEO of Bron Watson. I'm the CEO, and then we've got our executive team. And for my executive team, it's actually energy healing, all of the things. And then we've got the team, the rest of the committee, which are my specialists, GPs. I've actually met this most incredible woman in Brazil who's a wonderful GP, a general practitioner, doctor in Brazil. And like we've crossed paths, and this woman is just so beautiful. And here she is. She's moved up into the executive team. So it's just when you're taking control of the controllables, as you said, you're going into those appointments, you're going into this wheel. I mean, it's like a hamster wheel. What did you call it? You had a word for it at the beginning. You call it not whackable, something.
Whack-a-mole. Yes.
Whack-a-mole, right?
That game where you always have to like hit
Yeah,
something and
that's
then something
right.
else
That's
pops up.
right. That's it. So I call it the hamster wheel, where you feel like you can't get off.
Yeah.
And it's just when we take ourselves and our health and be an active participant, it really makes, I believe, healing more. And I use the word heal, not cure. Not everyone gets a cure, but every single person gets a healing path. Every single person has that chance to live whatever life is for as long as they live in this most amazing, beautiful place of healing. And that's where all of the, I'd have people say to me, "Oh, Bron, you're taking that treatment, are you?" What are you talking about? It's just treatment. It's not alternative treatment. It's just treatment, So that's my belief for me. But it's whatever your belief is for you is what's important, and that you stand by it. That's what healing is.
Absolutely. I love that. I would love to linger on this idea of what healing is, because I don't use that term regularly. Maybe I should. And I think it's, I feel like we're always in this this evolution, this continuum of healing. And if there is no cure, but we're in this process of healing, can you help me expound upon that a little bit more? And I feel like there's more to unpack.
There is. So the way I liken it for people to understand what healing looks like is you get out your phone and you get out the maps and you go, I'm going to go to healing, and you type in healing. I'm just making a metaphor. Yeah, you can, right? It does come up, but it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor, right? So I get out maps and I'm going to type in healing, right? So you know how normally you'd want to you're going to the destination. I'm visiting you in Boston. I have no idea where you are. I'm going to go to my maps and I'm going to put your address in. Do the same. Imagine the metaphor here is what you're going to do for healing. So you type in healing. What does it do? It finds healing and it gives you a blue line. You don't know what's on the blue line. You don't know how. You have no idea where you're going. It's like me. I've landed in Boston and I'm heading over to Laura's house. I'm on the wrong side of the road, so I don't know what's going on. And I have to trust in this blue line that it's going to get me there, because I literally have no idea where I'm going. That's the same for healing. So what happens? You come across a roadblock or there's an accident. What does a blue line do on your maps? It diverts you. It'll take you off to the left. I always say left-hand turn, right? I felt like my life was full of left-hand turns. Takes me on a left-hand turn. But what happens? It will always recalibrate back to healing. It will always guide you. And my saying that I learned from my energy healer, she had a saying which is, I know I will, I just don't know how. So we know we're working on the path of healing, We just don't know how. So it's like following the blue line and having absolute faith in ourselves that our blue line, Bron's blue line for Bron, is exactly the line she needs. She has no idea what's on it, but what she does have, that's where serenity comes in. So what she does have is that moment of serenity now so that we can work on the what's next versus next week, next month, next year, next decade. So that's my interpretation of how healing works. And what goes on that path is going to be determined by the person. So if what's on Bron's path of healing, my path of serenity is not yours, Laura. It's going to have completely different things. But understanding that we all are able to get out our phones, metaphorically speaking, and find a destination of healing. Not healed. You notice I'm not saying healed, I'm saying healing. Because it's always going. It'll never end.
And when did you decide to find an energy healer and bring them onto your executive team?
I had met this beautiful woman, Kerry, through our business paths back in maybe 2013. And we'd always just looked at, liked each other's stuff on socials. And when I had the second diagnosis, I thought, I can't do this on my own. And I also had a therapist. I got all the things, right? Because I'm dealing with an incurable cancer diagnosis. The one thing that we all didn't want, now we've got it. And I've reached out to Kerry and I said, Kerry, I need help. And we just started working together and worked together. She's always there for me, but for 2 years. And it was the best thing I ever did because I learned so much about myself and I learned what was in my control and what wasn't. So for those of you who have read Mel Robbins' Let Them book, I saw Mel last week and she's just amazing, right? She's exactly who she is on her podcast, in her book. And what this is about is literally let them, when it comes to family, beliefs in life, what supports you, in terms of me. My whole goal in business and life is healing. So if it doesn't fit, I now have courage. I used to wear a hat with hope on the back. Breast cancer, they love the word hope, right? I'd wear this hope hat. I loved it. It was my favorite hat, especially when I was bald. And I now realize that hope for me actually is courage. The courage to choose what I know to believe to be right for me. And that's my biggest lesson with healing is that we don't have all the answers. You can't control it. It changes in a blink of an eye. But we have that understanding and belief that I know I will, I just don't know how.
Yes, absolutely. Well, another thing we have in common, I also got to see Mel Robbins speak when she was in Boston. The Let Them theory, all of that, so phenomenal. And the other person I was going to reference is Brene Brown, who wrote the book. Did you read, is it the Atlas of the Heart? Is that the one that she wrote?
I think I've got that, yes.
And to me,
I've got books, yeah.
Yes, that to me was like when you're talking about naming it. I think our vocabulary is so limited. Like, how are you today? I'm good, I'm fine, I'm bad, I'm sad, I'm tired. Like, there's like the same 5 adjectives we use all of the time. And then she has this book with like 40 plus, maybe more, don't quote me on this, but like this book of just emotions that I'm like, wow, that's actually like, I'm confused. I'm not angry. I'm just confused or frustrated or disillusioned or, these words that like we don't use all the time that is actually naming what it is that we're feeling and experiencing. And so that is just really helpful to take the time to pause to actually really identify what it is that we're feeling so we can put a name to it.
Yeah. And that act alone removes some of that emotion, which makes it, as I said, gives that space to then be able to process. We all process differently. Some people process by talking. And, I'll give you an example about, because my bloods have been up and down and one of the markers is just, one of the cancer markers is just doing their little rise. And it could take years to get to where they go, okay, it's at 100 now, Bron, now time to treat. And it's like, well, okay, I got to live through that. How do I live through that? And I was crying and my husband's trying to fix me, right? Fix it. I said, sweetheart, just let me be. I'm going to be fine very, very soon. We can't fix this. Because normally what would happen is, you want to fix, if someone's hurting, you want to or grieve or whatever it is, you want to throw your arms around them, you want to take it away, you want to fix it and can't fix this. So he just left me be. 10 minutes later, I'm okay because I allowed that emotion out. I'm not walking around with it. That's the energy side of it, right? That's the soulful side. I'm not carrying last week's grief because I've already grieved that. going to go deal with this week. You know what I mean? Or whatever feeling it is. You know, I've just got back from Japan and I left my one of my sons there, and it's like, oh my goodness, he's doing an exchange program. It was a lot harder than I thought. He's 24 years fine, but
Amazing.
mama's not fine. So, you know, it's I think when you have that skill, and again, it's learned. You can learn this stuff. I wasn't taught this.
And someone living with a terminal illness, you still have, to use your words, the courage to allow yourself to learn and to heal. So I want to ask you, how, for the listeners today who are navigating a cancer diagnosis, whether it's an early stage breast cancer diagnosis or a metastatic disease, when we feel super crushed, when we feel like there is no hope and that you're just trying to navigate the day to day, how can I take on one more thing? Allowing space and room for self-care when there's doctor's appointments, kids, daycare, groceries, chores, all of these things. I think we started off some of this conversation too with we're just busy, amazing, exceptional women doing incredible work. We don't have time to be sick. We don't have time to have cancer. So how do you have that mind shift from doing it all to saying, no, I deserve to make this time for myself?
And it's such a good question because it's not rest is actually active treatment, and sleep and exercise is all part of it, right? It's not that we don't have enough time. We choose to put time elsewhere. So it's about the priority of the healing. So being a mother of 5 sons and I've got my husband and the doggies, and when I was in nursing, give, and building a business that was not in alignment with me, was the moment came, the epiphany came for me after the second round of chemotherapy. So I was bald, red-faced, to this day, we're getting treated for breast cancer. Not everyone, the trials are amazing, but, those foundational treatments, they're like 30 years old. Like, come on, guys, come on. And so I'd been treated with AC, and so if people know TAC, I had the paclitaxel separately. So I've got the AC on board, red, round, sick. 4 hours after this treatment, I'm out of the hospital, out of the Cancer Institute, and I'm on a Facebook Live to my clients because I believed that I needed to deliver what I said I was going to deliver, because that's what I'd promised my people.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I thought, who the heck is that? And then I realized, oh my God, Bron, that's you. And I looked at myself in the eyes and I said, do you want to die? Because you keep this up, it's not going to be pretty. And so I literally shut that mentoring business down overnight, which was a very difficult thing to do financially, but also remembering from responsibility. And I now know, and this is the answering of your question, the difference between doing something for someone else because that's what I promised I was going to do versus doing something for someone else, but on my timeline. So it doesn't mean, especially if you've got younger kids and shopping and those sort of things, it's around going, cool, I'm going to get it delivered. And asking for help. I suck to this day for asking for help, but I couldn't ask. I was the stoic person after the breast cancer diagnosis, but after the second one, I'm now a lot more vulnerable. And I really feel that when we name those emotions and become vulnerable, the help comes, the balance comes, and remembering it's just the next step. It's not next week. It's not next month. For me, I choose not to focus on something that hasn't happened yet versus what's the next play. Well, kids have got to be picked up, shopping, cooking, whatever those things are, and being vulnerable. That's the difference between the person who used to do it all for everyone else versus the person who still loves to help everyone else, but it's now my timeline.
And I think you bring up a really critical point where I didn't hear you say this, but what I'm thinking is, and maybe this is just culturally or for us as women, by saying no or stepping back or needing to shut down a business, that's not failure. That is respect for yourself. That is giving yourself the permission to let go and to say that this is not serving me right now. And it's only going to deteriorate what I'm able to give when I am able to give on my timeline. I think so many times we get caught up in this malaligned concept of failure, that if I don't do this, then this is on me. I didn't give it my all, or I could have done harder or tried harder or given it more, etc. But I think we need to slowly start shifting away from that. And I like your idea
Absolutely.
around, following this navigation blue line towards healing, or there is something out there that is guiding us to our purpose, to what we are meant to be doing. And it's not going to be beautiful and pretty and clean all the time. It's going to be jaggedy and curvy and maybe some U-turns, but like in backtracking,
Mm,
'cause I definitely get lost.
mm.
It's what we're meant to do and be. And I think just having today's conversation, I already feel empowered and inspired. And I like this idea of calling my exercise regimen my treatment plan because maybe I'll stick to it.
Hey, 100%. All that was left for me in terms of life, this is kind of funny, is that I love a really good coffee, which I hate to say it, America, it's not as hard, it's not as easy to find as you might think, but it's my thing. So to have that moment with my puppies out the back, my morning coffee, it could be 10 minutes, but that's healing. That's actually treatment.
Yes.
Exercise, nutrition, Reiki, whatever your thing is, it's all part of your team. And when we learn to accept what we want for us, especially for women who are so good at giving for everyone else, it's around when you have that self-awareness, it just happens without trying to find the answer, because we don't know what the answer might be, but we know that your treatment for you, Laura, is exactly what's right for you, and then what will be will be. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Bron, I love this conversation. How can our listeners find you, stay in touch with you, connect with you?
I think the easiest way is I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta as under Bron Watson. And if you go to serenityproject.com.au, please reach out. There's a little tab there that you can even leave a voice message if you can't type.
Very nice.
Because not everyone has, to depend on where they're at in healing. So I'll answer every single question. I'll get back to you. So please reach out. There's a newsletter there if anything resonates with you. Because to me, it's all about collaboration. It's about raising the awareness for someone to be aware, for them to make their choices for their healing and treatment. So if we can do all that together, we're all going to be amazing, and let the science do their thing and let the soul do their thing. And then we're all in the middle going, hey, we got this.
I love that. That's exactly what I say too. I'm like, I'm not the doctor. I'm not the medical expert. They're there
No,
doing their thing, and we're here to help support everything else. I love that. Thank you so much
exactly.
for taking the time today, Bron, sharing your story and your wisdom and your personal experience with me and our listeners. Thanks for being here.
Look, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you are looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Our show is made possible by our nonprofit, survivingbreastcancer.org, and by our incredible donors like yourself. You can hop on over to survivingbreastcancer.org to sign up for our mailing list, make a donation, and explore the 400+ programs we offer each year at survivingbreastcancer.org/events. Until next time, keep on thriving.